Good morning, Maya. We're really excited to have you here for this interview on the Island Innovation live stream in the lead up to the virtual Island Summit. We've got a really interesting guest who is going to tell us more about her work in Croatia, particularly with the island movement, and share some of her experiences on islands and building a sustainable island economy in Croatia and around Europe. Uh, this is a first for Island Innovation to do these live streaming interviews, and we'll be now doing them regularly, at least once per week over the next few months. So excited to start off this. And I'd like to introduce Maja Jurisic. I hope I got your name right, your last name right there, to tell us some more. So Maja, tell us a little bit about you and the island of Croatia.
Thank you very much, James, first of all, for inviting me and letting me opening these sessions of the interviews with amazing people all over the world. It's really a pleasure to be a part of the Island Innovation Group and inspiring us to do the work that we are doing in local communities. Yes, thank you for presenting me. I'm currently living on the island of Šolta in Croatia. It's one of the 50 inhabited islands in Croatia. So although the Croatia is known as the country with lots of islands, they are mentioning more than 1,000 islands, but these are the numbers with all the small islands that are not having inhabitants there. And when we are counting in numbers of people, which I think that are crucial and the most important when we are talking about the communities, then we are coming to the number of around 50 islands that are inhabited in Croatia. So I'm representing the Island Movement Platform, which is aiming to connect the islands and raise the borders between the islands. Something very similar that you are also giving us on the world level, that we are able to use the new technologies and exchange now the expertise between us and everything else that we are working in our communities. I have a little fly attacking me here.
No worries. The fun of doing a live interview. Yeah, I can even see it. Seems very interesting.
She really likes me now.
So,
Yeah.
so the islands in Croatia you mentioned mostly quite small populations. You said around 50 inhabited ones. So what do the islands look like for someone who's never been to Croatia? Small islands, very tourism dependent. Tell us a little bit about the average or the different islands.
Yeah, when we are talking in the European or world level, then all Croatian islands are in effect very small islands. But we have very big differences between us, from 10,000 people to 200 people living, or even 6 people living on the island. So it's really depending, and we can see on what is very beautiful, that you can see so differences on our coast, that you can get a picture about the different context when you have these differences in the number of people. So also the experience of working on in Brussels within the Clean Energy for Your Island Secretariat brought me also the picture of how the things are working on in different European countries. And I have to say that there are so many differences and so many similarities, so many potentials, and so many challenges that we are facing. And when we are talking with the islanders, everybody are going to emphasize the population of the islands, lack of the young people, skills and the knowledge for the green future that we are talking about, lack of the financing resources, depending on the tourism, mass tourism, which is impacting the nature and the sustainability of the communities. So we are sharing lots of different things together, and this is the same with Croatian islands. So our idea was to create a platform to connect everything what I told you, because it's very important, especially nowadays, to bring the experiences together and learn, because the time are changing very fast. So we need to act now for let's say survive the next crisis that everybody are talking about.
What is the Croatian government doing to support the islands or support this kind of work? Do you see a lot of help at the state level?
Well, I have to say that maybe I wasn't aware before how far we are going until I came to the Brussels and being able to compare with other countries. I have to say that we are pretty advanced in understanding of the island development and preparing strategic plannings and documents for their sustainability. Okay, how we are now doing it, and do we still on the field are we already feeling, you know, the impact of these strategies? I couldn't say a lot, but let's say that with the strategic planning on the national level, also we were a part of the different working groups of developing low on islands. Croatia is one of two countries, at least 1 year ago, that had the low on islands. I think that lots of countries are following these examples, and we are witnessing also, for example, now in Ireland, that governments are opening the special areas for the islands and preparing special financial instruments. So this is something that is really happening all over us, and we can say that Croatian government is one of the pioneering, recognizing the importance of the islands in the overall economy and community, especially when we are talking about tourism and everything what it is bringing in the overall budget of the country.
Yeah, interesting. And we've seen a lot about Scotland and the Republic of Ireland, both of the efforts that they've done. I'd say, yeah, Croatia seems like similar to Scotland's island proofing legislation that you might know about, where every law in Scotland has to be put through this kind of island proofing mechanism to see how it will impact those specific islands. So maybe, is there anything kind of specific this year? I mean, there's obviously all islands around the world are struggling with kind of these changes in 2020 around the pandemic. And so how are the islands in Croatia coping with that? And is the government doing anything to help specifically for the problems this year?
Well, I think that we will be in a counting process currently, because we are still not able to predict fully how what are going to be the impacts of the pandemic on the overall tourism. I'm sure that it's going to be very hard for most of the people, and we are all questioning now what is going to happen. But thanks to the European strategy, but also to the national government, we have managed to get appropriate budget for the recovery fund, and we are preparing now the national strategy for the recovery funds, where the islands are mentioned and planned for development of the financial resources for the energy transition and sustainable development of the islands. So definitely, yes, we will be included into the bigger plan of the national government of how to approach and to help the local economies. So, but now what we need to do and what we are now trying to do, this is again the importance of networking and sharing the experience. As I mentioned on the beginning, we are trying to run with the time in a way, because we are all aware of the lack of the human capital and the young people on the islands who are able to actually do the stuff that we will be able to get the money for. So this is something that now we are running with the time and trying to get as much experts on board that are able to help with their knowledge, with their experiences, with the best practices already proven somewhere. This is why the island innovation and the platforms like this are very important, so that we know what exactly the context of the islands can be easily replicated or already implemented or easily adapted to the things that the community needs the most at this point. I think that we have, like, you know, another 5 years to open our eyes wide and start completely changing our behaviors in all terms of life and the jobs. So let's see what is waiting for us.
Yeah, super interesting. And I know that you obviously worked in Brussels for a while, and that must have very much changed your perspective or opened up to see what is happening around the continent. And I'm curious if you have anything to say about the European Union's general approach to islands, and to what level the support is happening at the European Union level, in addition to what's happening at the country level.
Well, yes, I was involved in the Clean Energy for You Island Secretariat, but this is the result of the effort of the lots of island communities, island representatives, and also people who were able to bring decisions in the parliament. I can also emphasize the effort of one of our MEPs from Croatia, Mr. Tonino Picula, who together with other MEPs from other island countries managed to put the islands on the main agenda of the European Parliament. So the Clean Energy for You Islands initiative is a result of these efforts and the declaration that all the island countries signed, that they want to support clean energy transition on European islands. We have been working on building the island platform for the last 2 years together with the different island stakeholders all over the European Union. And our main approach, most important one, is to include all stakeholders. So we are all constantly talking, then one without the other sector is going to, be much more slower and much more inefficient. So we need to go together with academia, local authorities, representatives of different institutions, but also entrepreneurs and also community organizations and citizen cooperatives. So on a European level, which we are still waiting, especially in the Mediterranean countries, is that more focus on the community and cooperative engagement of the people, because European law are clearly saying that the center of the energy transition should be prosumers, which we still need to build up, the whole community that still needs to be built up and become aware of the power that they have to become also not only the people who are, using the energy and not only thinking about the saving energy, but also how to produce the energy and become the community leaders in on their islands with the new approaches. This is also very important in the social context of reinvesting the money from the renewables into the local communities and not allowing that the money is going out of the communities in a big amounts that people doesn't feeling the effects of the produced energy on their islands. So these are some risks of this also big hype about the energy transition, that we are going to lose the energy out of our hands, which I think we shouldn't. It's in a way the sun is shining on the islands.
So as far as the European Union is concerned, most of those policies for islands are focused on energy, or are there other programs outside of energy? I mean, energy is still vitally important, as you say. I'm just curious if it goes beyond the energy sector.
Yeah, the thing is that when we were started to talking about the energy policies on the European level, the story started about the smart island. So the backbone of the island development was the smart island, but at some point, according to the adoption to the European policies that were out there, the islands were developed within the clean energy European package, and in that point, what I see is that the backbone of the development of the islands change into the energy transition, which again, I'm sure that everybody knows that the energy again is, everywhere. So agriculture or the culture or the local authorities or public services or tourism sector, everything is connected to the energy. So now it's up to the policymakers and the strategy development units to see how they need to connect all of these energy transition movement, because also what we need to be aware that when, especially in Croatia, I don't know how what's your experience in other islands, but energy transition is not the key thing that the islanders should do now or should work. So we need to find a way how to connect the European policies around the energy transition to the real needs of the local communities, which are producing food, which are less having less costs, for example, in the public services, in the schools, trying to give incentives to the local economies to start over the new jobs and everything else. So this is where we need to find a common ground between. And this is what we are trying to do as the island movement. We are trying to bridge this moment of what is really needed on the field and what are happening on the different levels of decision makers and law development.
That's a really interesting point, actually, because often these issues, I mean, energy is important, but it's probably not the thing that is at people's front of mind every day that they're thinking about. And you even see that in developing countries in say, the Caribbean or the Pacific Islands that are very driven on aid from the UK or EU or US, that the priorities of the people making the decisions on where the aid goes are very different to people kind of day to day. I mean, everyone cares about renewable energy or climate change, and those topics are important, but at the same time, people also want their schools and their healthcare and the very basics taken care of. And sometimes the excitement around environmental projects kind of can distract from the day-to-day life. So it's great to see that you're doing that. So maybe just to move on to the island movement and the work that you're doing, tell us a bit about how you're doing that. What mechanisms are you trying to do, and or what have you done so far, and what would you like to do?
Yeah, well, the most important thing is that we started because we were feel lonely on each island. At some point we got an opportunity to go to Brussels to travel there with different island representatives who are making changes in their own communities, and we realized on that trip that we are feeling lonely when we are in our communities as a change makers, as someone who is seeing the different future. And these events and these meetings bring us a new energy and new enthusiasm about changing the things. So to be able to stay in touch, we needed to start to work digitally. So this happens like 5 years ago, and we are now running an association with 2 employees and more than 20 volunteers all over the Croatian coast for last 5 years. And in this case, we are, let's say, the pioneers of this Corona way of working, and it was very easily for us to adapt to the new situation. And also what we noticed is that the Croatian islanders in last 5 years reconnect themselves between each other. Lots of people started to travel to other islands which they didn't think before about them. And now we have the situation that everybody in Croatia are really talking about islands. There are lots of stories about the islands online which wasn't the case before when we started. So this is something that it's a very good and very visible result that we can say. Also what we wanted, and I mentioned, is to become a bridge between the local communities, because I personally, I wasn't the islander. I moved 7 years ago, and in the process I became an islander. So at some point I understand how it's going to be out of this community and in the community. So this is why I can translate these different visions, these different life perceptions. And this is what we are trying to do, because what we see is that the policies are not in line with what we really need, and the people are not able to communicate what exactly they want to do and what are their potentials on the islands. So we build up a virtual educational and awareness raising platform. We are connecting and strengthening local communities, and we are strongly believe that the result and the key of the development are we as ourselves, as individuals, that we need to become aware of our own potentials and how to use the new technologies and new development, not influencing the nature and not distract the community that we are living in, but to use it to implement the new values into the new world that we are waiting there. So this is a kind of a vision, but we are also very aware that the islands are in a way, some of the islands are really slowly dying, and we need to be aware of that there are lots of small islands out there in the seas that are losing their people because of people running into the cities and trying to have this, what you say, health protection, better health protection, better schools, better environment for their kids, better ways of education and everything. So I'm hoping that these kind of things that we are doing will allow people to stay on the island, but also to be connecting with the whole world. We are trying to develop a digital nomads on the island to open up the working places for the young people. So this is what we are looking into as one of the solutions for the island development.
And a lot of people this year have talked about obviously the collapse of tourism. We don't know in the future what tourism will look like. Maybe it's the end of the cheap Ryanair holiday. I don't know. But Croatia is one of the countries that have been quite proactive in thinking about this digital nomad visa to attract people. I don't think anything's happened yet, but there's been talk about it happening. I know Estonia, Bermuda, and Barbados have been some of the first to do these long stay visas to attract people. So I'm curious to see how that's playing out in Croatia, this talk about long-term tourism, but also whether you see the opportunity is more in long-term tourism or actually attracting residents to move back. Now so many people are used to working from home. Which of those two is the bigger opportunity, or maybe it's both?
I definitely think there are both, because we need both. Tourism should be still one of the main things that we are doing, because it's something that we are doing good and we have something to offer. But we need to raise the quality of the services, and we also need to raise the additional economies around the tourism, such as agriculture, education, any kind of the sustainability that we can imagine. It can be developed on the islands. We just need to also to look, as I said, into the new technologies, because lots of companies now, for example, can move their branches into the islands if they continue to work like they are working during the pandemic. But also what we have in line with that is development of the technologies, where again we have a different ways of how we are not impacting the human health and the nature with developing a lot of the. So it's a balance, you know. We need to be very, very aware also of the capacities of the island, so that we are not, you know, eternal in a way. So we need to plan it very, very well in the future and combine these two, because for example in Croatian islands, and I'm pretty sure that the same thing, and the main problem for development of the human capital on the islands is to find a persistent home, for example, because people are not renting. There is not a culture of renting for living on the islands. So this is something that is a big, big, big problem, and how to get people on the islands. We already have, for example, where I live here on island of Sholta, I was looking how people were coming in the last few years, and I know at least 4 families that came working online from the mainland in last few years. So it's happening already. It's just that maybe if we have more strategy about how to develop these possibilities for these people, I think we could easily go there. It's just, again, we need to know about the technology and how to develop it. It's the other infrastructure also that we need to think about it.
But in general, the islands have good internet in Croatia, or okay internet?
Well,
That's
it
not
really depends from the islands, from the island to island, from the spot to spot. It really depends. Here I have the excellent internet, but I was traveling around that I needed to, you know, to make an effort to be sure where I can have a meeting and for example, interviews like this.
So there is a need to upgrade the infrastructure for some of the islands, but it's interesting what you said. The problem is not necessarily just internet, it's also homes and having a structure that allows people actually to find somewhere to move. Because I would assume the tourism is quite seasonal. Tourism in Croatia is very much dependent on one half of the year. So what are the efforts to kind of make business for the other 6 months of the year when there's few tourists normally?
Well, it also depends, because we mustn't forget that islanders are having different hats. They are doing tourism, they are doing agriculture, they are doing everything what is around their houses and around their living. So when they are not in the tourism, they are probably in the fields and doing wine, doing olives. That's at least in Croatian case. So when we are talking about all year tourism, I think it would be it would affect on the island life, and this is not what we want. So we need again to find a balance between our life. Honestly, if I'm working in tourism, and this is something I don't want, because I want my life during the summer, so I'm trying to have the work all over the year, but this is my choice. On the other side, if I would the working in tourism, I would always allow me at least 3 months in a year that I don't see people, you know, that I have my own island life without the guests. So it's really interesting when we are talking from different perceptions. If you ask politicians, they would talk about, you know, 365 tourism development and things like this. But on the other side, then we are killing the reason why the tourists are visiting us, and they are visiting us because of the people and communities and the feelings that they are feeling within the community.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's not necessarily, people don't always want tourists there or that many tourists there all year round. Yeah, that was super interesting to know how the Croatian perspective on islands and how that fits into the European Union and everything else with the work that you're doing. Island Movement is really kind of pioneering some of these conversations. Is there anything else you'd like to share about Island Movement or any of the other work you're doing before we finish?
Well, I think we said a lot, so I can only say that people should just invite people to join us on these virtual events, because it's really, for me, it's a great thing sitting here in Sholta and being able to speak to the world, and also to share my experience, but also to hear lots of amazing stories all around. There's so many islanders and island stakeholders and island thinkers and lovers all over the world, so we have lots of in common, and we can do amazing stuff in next few years.
Yeah, I think there's a big opportunity there, and I know one of the issues is always the language barrier to get people involved with these kind of conversations. So we'll have to have a think about what we can do. Maybe we can do a bilingual conversation. There's so much you can do over Zoom. Do jointly hold a webinar between us where we have those speakers or something. I think there's some good opportunities there. We're pioneering now, trying to see how we can better include different languages, but it is always the problem. So yeah, we'll have to keep thinking about how we can do that. But Maja, it was really nice to hear about what you're doing. I think it's really amazing how things are happening in Croatia, and looking forward to staying tuned as everything develops with the Island Movement. Thank you so much.